everyone, my name is April Johnson. I am a freshman at Central Michigan University, preparing to study elementary education with a focus in mathematics. Growing up, my parents and friends always asked me why I wanted to become a teacher. Why not a neurosurgeon, an engineer, or an astronaut? The answer has always been simple. I have loved every step of my educational journey and hope to create the same environments for students like me. Let's go back to see how my educational adventure started. I started school at Our Lady of the Lake Regional Catholic School. I went here for 2 years of preschool, and although I don't remember much, my parents said I absolutely loved it. My teachers were very kind and gave us lots of independence for a 3-year-old. I remember asking my teacher one day if it was okay if I colored a tree purple, even though they're usually green, and she let me. I was so excited. Being at Our Lady of the Lake was a great start to my educational journey. When I was 5, I switched to the public schools and started at Collins Elementary. Collins was much bigger than my old private school. There were kindergartners through 3rd graders, and our class sizes were much bigger. I was extremely shy for most of the year, so it was difficult for me to make friends, but within a few weeks, I had a few close friends that I always played with. My kindergarten teacher, Mrs. Kopel, was amazing and was one of my favorite teachers throughout my education. Mrs. Kopel was extremely understanding that her students were each at different levels of education and individualized all of her lessons so that we could best succeed. For example, I was ahead of my class in reading levels, so instead of holding me back with the rest of the class, she had one of the high school students come in multiple times a week to help me read harder books. While many of my classmates excelled at math, I fell behind, but instead of leaving me in the dust, she would have her classroom assistants help the rest of the class, while she pulled myself and a few other students off to the side to strengthen our mathematics skills. I am so grateful for Mrs. Kopel and how she helped me and the rest of our class succeed to our fullest potential. The rest of elementary school went just as well as kindergarten. All of my teachers were invested in my success and made school not only educational, but fun. I have fond memories of having field trips to the pumpkin patch, creating messy science projects, and coming home and telling my parents about the many fun things we did during the day. I started middle school in the fall of 2009 at Houghton Lake Middle School. Our middle school covers 4th through 7th grade, and I remember going from being the oldest kid in the school to the youngest was very intimidating to me. Looking back, 4th grade was one of my favorite years of school. My 4th grade teacher, Mrs. Chevalier, was my most inspirational teacher through all of school. She noticed that I was extremely shy but thought I had a lot of potential, so she would push me out of my comfort zone often to give me leadership roles. Mrs. Chevalier asked me to speak during our Veterans Day assembly, and I hesitantly agreed, but I was very nervous. I had a hard time talking to people in my class, let alone our entire middle school. Surprisingly, I had a lot of fun. I was very glad I did it and was so happy she asked me. I started doing more things that made me uncomfortable with Mrs. Chevalier's help, including being on a Battle of the Books team and signing up for a spelling bee. By the end of 4th grade, I was no longer shy and wanted to try new things all the time. I can't thank my favorite teacher, Mrs. Chevalier, enough for helping me realize the endless possibilities that were out of my comfort zone. The rest of middle school went great as well. After I started becoming more involved, I was able to find many activities that I loved, such as student government and cheer. Although it's difficult to look back on my cringy middle school pictures, middle school was overall a fun experience. In 8th grade, I began high school. 8th grade was intimidating. Going from being the oldest to the youngest and smallest was scary. Most of the juniors and seniors that walked past us were over a foot taller than me. The upperclassmen were very good at intimidating us. They would make sure that we respected them by always lurking in our hallways. My freshman year, I finally had my first teacher that I really disliked. She was my English teacher, and she had favorite students, only called on 5 or 6 people that she liked, and gave them the best grades. I was very frustrated, confused, and I'm glad my time in her class is over, but I learned so much about what not to do as an educator from her. Other than that class, the rest of high school was amazing. I loved all of my teachers and had a great time learning, hanging out with friends, going to football games, and much more. The endless amounts of homework my junior and senior year were tough, but nothing we were incapable of doing. I discovered myself and who I wanted to be while having lots of fun. My time in Houghton Lake Community Schools is something I will always look back on fondly. I loved everything, but especially my teachers. None of my teachers ever seemed burned out or looked like they wished they weren't at school. They truly loved what they were teaching and were passionate about helping us learn to our best potential.